Picture this: a man who seems to have everything perfectly arranged in his life. His career, his daily routines, his social connections, everything appears structured and under control. Yet beneath this composed exterior lies something untouched, almost unreachable, his deepest emotional core. You can sense it without him saying a word. There's an invisible barrier, a protected space no one has accessed until someone special appears and completely disarms him without even trying. It wasn't anything dramatic or obvious. Not a passionate kiss. Not grand promises. It was something far more subtle, perhaps a fleeting gesture, a particular look, or an inexplicable energy that resonated at exactly the right frequency. From that singular moment, something within him began to shift. Something no previous connection had ever awakened. Something he himself didn't even recognize he was missing. Psychology teaches us that the human heart doesn't connect with the obvious or predictable. It responds to what carries deeper meaning. It doesn't seek certainty as much as it seeks authentic reflection. Often what ignites that quiet flame inside a man has no clear form or name. It's a resonance, a vibration that touches precisely where he believed nothing remained to be discovered. Have you experienced this? Have you ever sensed that you profoundly affected someone without conscious effort? Were you surprised when someone remembered detailed moments with you despite not having shared anything particularly significant? If you've had such an experience, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Your story might hold more significance than you realize. What's fascinating is that when a man experiences this kind of soul-level connection, he doesn't always express it openly. Quite the opposite. He might actually create distance, become more logical and detached, or retreat to comfortable patterns. But this withdrawal doesn't mean the connection failed to affect him. It means he doesn't know how to process what he experienced because what moved him wasn't something he could anticipate or control. It was an emotion that arrived uninvited, a feeling that didn't fit into his existing framework. This is crucial to understand. A man's deeper self doesn't respond to logical persuasion, but to what challenges him to confront himself, his unacknowledged emptiness, his suppressed desires, his need for genuine connection. And that connection doesn't emerge from calculated words or actions. It springs from what a woman naturally embodies, often without even realizing it. When a woman exists in harmony with herself, when she's not seeking external validation, when she lives from her authentic truth, her presence communicates in a silent language that a man's unconscious mind immediately recognizes, even if his conscious thoughts deny it. In these profound moments, he doesn't connect with the person herself. He connects with what she symbolizes, the unconscious promise of something he's been searching for without knowing how to name it. Psychology describes our shared human experiences and emotional patterns that shape us, even without conscious awareness. Within a man's emotional landscape often reside feminine images that have influenced him since childhood, nurturing figures, sources of inspiration, idealized connections. These internal images shape his emotional expectations and get projected onto the women he encounters. But there's one internal image that transcends all others. It's what psychology calls the inner feminine, not defined by roles or expectations, but by energy and essence. When a man encounters a woman who naturally embodies aspects of this internal image, something awakens within him. It's not simple desire. It's not dependency. It's something far more profound. It's as if suddenly he sees himself reflected in a mirror he never dared to look into before. The fascinating part? This woman typically isn't making deliberate efforts to create this effect. She isn't strategically pursuing him, chasing his attention, or pleading to be chosen. She's simply being authentic. She's fully inhabiting her true self. And this rare authenticity, so disruptive to normal patterns, is precisely what impacts him because it exists beyond his ability to manage or control. He can't predict it. He can't categorize it. He can't fit it into familiar patterns. This is when the confusion begins. His rational mind attempts to explain, analyze, and force these feelings into existing frameworks. But emotional connection doesn't operate through logic. It flows through resonance. When a woman expresses her authentic truth, it's not her actions that affect the man. It's her genuine essence that calls to something within him. Have you ever noticed someone seem deeply drawn to you without obvious reason? Did you seem to represent something significant they couldn't quite articulate? I'd really like to read your experiences in the comments, because these moments reveal just how powerful natural authenticity can be. Complications arise when this attraction becomes uncomfortable because he doesn't know how to process these unfamiliar feelings. He's unprepared for such vulnerability and openness. What's being activated within him isn't just a passing emotion. It's an invitation to his own transformation. This explains why many connections break before they truly begin. The woman doesn't understand why he withdraws just when everything appeared to be developing beautifully. Even he doesn't fully comprehend why he can't remain, why something internal pushes him to retreat. What's actually happening is that his inner world has been touched in an unprecedented way. This moment, though he may not recognize it, marks the beginning of something significant, the first step toward awakening. On the surface, it might appear he simply continued with his life, that nothing meaningful occurred, that it was just another casual interaction. But the truth runs deeper. His unconscious mind has been marked not by memories of any ordinary woman, but by what she symbolized to his deeper self. It wasn't her external beauty that captivated him, nor specific words or gestures. It was how she made him, without explicit intention, turn inward toward himself. Psychology reveals that we're defined not just by what we show the world, but by what remains hidden. Often what a man suppresses is precisely his need to experience vulnerability, to surrender control, to stop managing every aspect of his emotional life. That's why when a woman appears who doesn't demand, doesn't plead, doesn't need to prove her worth, he doesn't know how to respond. She doesn't play an expected role in his life. She represents a doorway to parts of himself he's avoided confronting: his sensitivity, his gentleness, his fear of abandonment, his deep longing to be truly seen and accepted. Naturally, this feels frightening because no one taught him how to navigate these emotional depths. No one explained that love isn't about power dynamics, but about creating sacred space for mutual growth. So what does he do? He protects himself. He pulls away. He convinces himself it wasn't significant. He retreats to comfortable patterns and predictable experiences. But in quiet moments when distractions fade and pretenses drop away, her presence returns. Not her physical image, but the feeling she evoked, that inexplicable sensation he can't rationalize but that remains alive within him, resonating like a melody he can't forget. Here begins an invisible yet irreversible process. His unconscious mind begins working to remind him that something about this woman was extraordinary, something that transcended possession and instead offered reflection. She wasn't offering a conventional relationship. She was presenting an opportunity for growth, and without recognizing its significance, he let her go. Have you experienced someone distancing themselves without clear explanation, only to reappear later as if they'd realized something important too late? If so, please share your experience in the comments. Sometimes these departures aren't rejections at all. They're pauses for understanding. And that understanding doesn't arrive easily. It requires time, silence, and radical honesty. But when clarity finally begins to emerge, everything changes. Because he recognizes that what impacted him wasn't her as an individual, but what she revealed to him about himself. That kind of impression doesn't fade with time. Eventually, he begins searching for her in other connections and memories. He might not consciously acknowledge this search. He might not even recognize it happening. But something within him constantly compares, remembers, projects, and no one else creates the same resonance. Because what he's truly seeking isn't a person. It's an experience, that calm presence, that emotional freedom, that way of simply existing without demands, of offering love without conditions. These qualities marked him deeply without dramatic declaration. This is when a subtle fixation begins, not with her specifically, but with what disappeared when she left. Deep down, he understands that with her, he didn't merely lose a potential relationship. He lost an opportunity to heal through genuine connection. Now everything feels emptier, more superficial, because no other presence awakens in him what she did. This awareness doesn't let him rest. Psychology suggests that what we deny within ourselves shapes our destiny. What this man is denying isn't her memory, but what she activated within him. That's why he continues seeing glimpses of her in others' expressions, in certain phrases, in particular silences. Not because she's physically present, but because her impression continues resonating in his unconscious like a living symbol. The more he denies this, the stronger it becomes. Eventually comes the impulse to return, to find her, to reclaim what was lost. But what he truly wants isn't her. It's what he experienced in her presence, the version of himself that existed only in her company. A more authentic, vulnerable, genuine version. Yet that version doesn't depend on her presence. It depends on his willingness to look within himself. Has someone ever returned to you claiming they couldn't forget you, yet unable to explain exactly why? Did they seek physical reconnection without having done the emotional inner work? If you've experienced this, please share in the comments. We often mistake this for love when actually it's avoidance. For this man to truly love, wanting to recreate feelings isn't enough. He must dare to integrate what he's learned, to recognize that what she represented was a reflection of his dormant, authentic self that can no longer be ignored. At this point, if he finds courage, the journey begins, a journey inward. He stops pursuing the woman externally. He stops blaming her for leaving. He stops attempting to possess what can't be possessed. Instead, he asks himself, what part of me awakened in her presence? What wounded places were exposed? What truth did her silence reveal to me? This questioning, though painful, represents the first step toward transformation. He's no longer trying to fill emptiness from outside. He's attempting to understand it from within. Through this process, without realizing it, his journey toward wholeness begins. At this stage, he's no longer running from himself. Something fundamental has shifted. He pauses, observes, allows himself to feel what he's avoided for so long. Though he may not yet know how to heal these places, he's no longer denying their existence. This represents enormous progress. Because genuine transformation doesn't require complete understanding. It begins when we stop running from ourselves. Psychology teaches that personal growth starts when the conscious self confronts the unconscious and recognizes that wholeness isn't found externally, but through integrating fragmented aspects of ourselves. Often this integration process begins with loss, an absence that cannot be filled or replaced. A woman who, without deliberate intention, left light rather than emptiness in her wake. He recalls specific moments, conversations, silences, simple gestures that now carry profound significance. He realizes that for perhaps the first time, someone truly saw him. Not for his outward accomplishments, not for his strength or charisma, but for who he actually was beneath all facades. This recognition disarmed him completely. In a world where many men learn to protect themselves behind carefully constructed masks, being truly seen feels almost unbearable. It's like standing emotionally naked before another soul. Yet paradoxically, it's precisely what they've secretly longed for most deeply. Have you ever sensed that your mere presence made someone confront themselves? That without words, you caused someone to face aspects of themselves they'd been avoiding? If you've experienced this, please share in the comments. Sometimes we don't recognize the quiet power we carry until someone reflects it back to us. This is where understanding begins to dawn. It's not her he needs to recover. It's his connection with himself. She was the catalyst, the trigger, the turning point. But the essential work now is internal. It belongs to him alone. He stops searching for someone to blame. He stops hoping the past will somehow return. He slowly begins asking himself new questions. Who am I beneath my protective layers? What aspects of myself have I never allowed to emerge? How can I become whole without trying to fill my emptiness through temporary connections? This honest self-examination begins transforming him. He may not yet know how to love differently. He may still stumble along the way, but he no longer connects from emptiness. He no longer pursues from lack. He's learning to be present with himself, to honor his needs, to listen to his inner wisdom. In this contemplative silence, she remains, not as absence that creates pain, but as symbol that offers guidance, representing what he once experienced and now finally allows himself to understand. With time, something settles within him. The desperate urgency fades. The internal noise quiets. The anxiety of needing immediate answers gradually dissolves. In its place emerges a new kind of serenity. Not because pain has disappeared, but because it now carries meaning. It's no longer an open wound. It's evidence that something is being rebuilt from within. In this reconstruction, he no longer seeks replacement. He begins integration, understanding that true love wasn't what he lost externally. It was what he proved capable of experiencing internally. He recognizes that she didn't save him. What she reflected back inspired him to begin saving himself. Psychology suggests we don't connect with others merely as individuals, but with qualities of our own soul reflected through them. This perfectly describes his experience. He didn't love her physical appearance, her smile, or her intellect in isolation. He loved her freedom, her groundedness, her authenticity, qualities he longed for but hadn't developed within himself. That explains the intensity of his pain. She represented everything he wasn't yet, but could potentially become. Here's something beautiful emerges. He no longer wishes for her return. Not because he's forgotten her impact, but because he understands her role in his life was already fulfilled. She wasn't an ending. She was a beginning, a threshold leading to his authentic self. Have you ever felt someone briefly entered your life specifically to awaken something within you, then departed? A fleeting but transformative presence? If so, please share your story. Your experience might provide exactly the perspective someone else needs to understand their own journey. Amidst this internal transformation, he begins living differently. He no longer acts from fear. He no longer connects from desperate need for acceptance. Now he observes himself with compassion, nurtures himself, allows himself vulnerability. Within this vulnerability, he discovers his genuine strength. Because authentic love isn't about control, possession, or convincing someone to stay. Love means fully inhabiting yourself and sharing that authenticity with someone equally committed to their own inner work. This changes everything. He begins relating from a different foundation, more honest, more peaceful, more human. Though she's no longer physically present, her energy remains, not as shadow causing pain, but as guide illuminating possibility. What she left wasn't emptiness. It was a new perspective on life. A way of seeing that doesn't seek possession but connection. A way that doesn't demand but flows naturally. A love not driven by fear of loss, but by freedom to share. At this point, he stopped fighting himself. He no longer blames himself for what he couldn't understand before. He no longer punishes himself for not knowing how to love as he was capable of loving. He's reached profound understanding. Love isn't about perfection. It's about consciousness. And this awareness, even arriving later than expected, has permanently transformed him. Psychology affirms that what we accept within ourselves transforms us completely. This is precisely what's happening. He's begun embracing his shadows, his emptiness, his contradictions. He no longer hides these aspects. He integrates them. Through this process, he becomes more authentically human, more whole, more capable of genuine connection. Now he clearly perceives what was previously invisible to him. This woman wasn't some unattainable ideal. She was a real person who simply valued herself enough to not remain where she wasn't truly seen and appreciated. It was this self-respect, this quiet act of dignity, that left an indelible impression. In a world where many confuse love with self-sacrifice, she embodied something revolutionary. The right to depart when staying would mean betraying herself. Though painful at the time, he now honors her choice. Have you experienced having your silence, your departure, your decision not to compromise yourself being misunderstood? Were you made to feel guilty for choosing self-respect? If you've navigated this difficult terrain, please share your experience. Your story might strengthen someone currently facing a similar decision. He now recognizes his transformation wouldn't have occurred if she had persisted, if she had stayed despite the imbalance, if she had begged for recognition. Her dignified departure itself ignited his internal transformation, because meaningful awakening requires disruption. And that disruption was love, not dramatic or demanding, but quiet, steady, and authentic. A love not requiring grand declarations or emotional scenes, just a door gently closing. A calm, no more, rising not from pride, but from self-worth. This simple act transformed him more profoundly than any promise could have. Through it, he finally understood what had always eluded him, that the deepest form of love isn't demanded. It's honored through mutual recognition. His approach to connection has fundamentally changed. He no longer seeks to impress or control. Now he desires to share his truth, imperfect as it may be. Within this imperfection, he's become more authentic. And though he might never express it, though she might never discover it, he carries profound gratitude. Because she wasn't the source of wounding. She was the catalyst, opening the doorway to a more authentic version of himself. Today, when he remembers her, the pain has transformed. There are no lingering, unanswered questions, no anxious need for closure. Something different has emerged, something calmer, clearer, more peaceful. He can finally view that connection not from absence and loss, but from appreciation and growth. She wasn't a mistake or missed opportunity. She was a message, a catalyst, a teacher who needed no words because her very presence communicated everything essential. Psychology suggests that significant encounters don't occur randomly, but because our deeper selves require them for evolution. That connection with her, though brief, unexpected, perhaps seemingly incomplete, was perfectly timed because it marked a clear before and after in his internal development. He no longer searches for her qualities in others or projects her onto new connections. Now he carries her within as internal compass, as guiding symbol, as the presence that without remaining physically present guided him back to his essence. This represents the deepest form of authentic love, not binding or controlling or conditional, but revealing, transforming, reminding you who you truly are and who you might become. Perhaps you watching this were that woman, the one who touched someone's soul without deliberate effort, the one who departed quietly yet left an echo that never faded, the one who with dignity showed the path inward and felt misunderstood or rejected for it. Today, perhaps you'll understand, you weren't forgotten. You were integrated into someone's growth journey, and that carries profound power. Or perhaps you're the man experiencing delayed awakening, beginning to understand that what you lost wasn't merely a relationship, but an opportunity to rediscover yourself. If so, may this message serve as your beacon. Because timing of awareness matters less than its arrival. It always comes precisely when the soul is prepared to receive it. Now I ask you sincerely, have you ever sensed your presence transformed someone without your conscious intention? Were you that catalyst who affected someone deeply, even if they couldn't explain why? Or are you experiencing awakening after meaningful connection ended? Please share below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. If this message resonated with something deep within you, if you felt these words speaking directly to your experience, I invite you to leave a comment, subscribe, and activate notifications to continue this journey of self-discovery together. Here, every story finds space. Every reflection can nurture another heart's growth. And if this content provided meaningful perspective, you can support this channel by becoming a member or using the Super Thanks feature. Your support helps create more deeply human, transformative content. Thank you for being present, for allowing these reflections into your inner world. Until our next conversation, remember to keep returning to yourself, your truest, most authentic self.